Hello YouTube, my name's Sean Connors, this is Outsiders, and today we're going to be focusing on Wizards for 3.5 Dungeons & Dragons. I'm going to give you my views as a DM and equally on and when I say a DM, I'm referring really to the things that I've seen work well through players. In my own group we have one particular player who's an very experienced wizard, and one thing that he always says to me that sticks in my head and is absolutely true and been proved over and over and over again is wizards are all about timing. Now last time we talked about the fighters is all about quantifying the immediate battlefield around you. Well, the wizards is all about timing, whether that's conserving your spells for the appropriate time, whether it's biding your time in the combat, maybe not doing something the first round, maybe not doing something the second round. It's very tricky to get the timing right, but you're always looking at when is the right time to strike. Now, as you go up in levels, you're going to have access to more spells, which means you don't have to conserve as much, but you've still got to be very mindful of it. There are certain things that are invaluable, and one of those is always trying to have a way to have a decent night's sleep. One of the favourite tricks that my group tend to use, and this is as you move up in levels, is they use Rope Trick, which creates an extra dimensional space that allows the wizard to pop up there for a few hours. Now early on, it's not as useful because you want at least 7-8 hours of sleep to get a full night's rest. But very quickly you can see that you can get the spell cast at a slightly higher level, and therefore you can rest throughout the night fairly safely, which means the wizard can relearn his spells fairly comfortably the next day. It's a good trick, it's well worth being aware of, but there are a lot of first level spells that are equally valuable. And we're going to cover that off in a follow-up program about certain spells, and I will be interested to have your feedback and your comments around anything that you want to see, any spells that you want covered, anything you want to ask questions to. So please keep those coming, and thank you so far for your comments and reviews on all the stuff that I've been doing. The wizard's strengths obviously is utility. It has a versatile range of spells. It can help anybody in any situation. I don't see them as blow-em-up merchants, although a lot of players like to play them very occasionally. That's their choice. But they work best when they're utilised in their role as somebody who provides support. That really they're a controller. They're able to stop certain things happening on the battlefield and directly impact who can get to who. That's their biggest threat. That's the thing they do well. And that's why timing becomes such an issue. Played poorly, players run out of spells very quickly. They don't know when to cast, so waste stuff. You know, the fighters just hit somebody for X amount of damage. It sounds like a lot of damage, and they're still standing the enemy. So you throw in another spell like a fireball, and it destroys them very quickly. It might have been a waste. So you have to think. It is really all comes back to all about timing. The biggest Achilles heel really for wizards is they don't suffer as badly through fortitude and will saves. Their biggest one is reflex saves. It's not so much an issue, but it has an impact. So again, be mindful of that and do things to protect yourself against evocation-based spells or spells that are going to engulf you in a ranged attack. So have a think about it and how you're going to best apply yourself to get around that. Another tip the best wizards always do, I've noticed, they always build a scroll library very quickly. And basically what that allows them is a lot of flexibility, whether they write the scrolls themselves or whether they get somebody else to write them for them and pay for it. Hugely valuable. Cannot be underestimated how useful that is. That's useful because you've got more spells to hand. Equally, you've got spells that you don't currently have on your spell list that you can use. So I'd definitely think about investing money and time into it, and I'd do it quickly if I was in your shoes. Generally as well, I think what you've got to be aware of is that early on the biggest problem that wizards have is that they have low hit points, poor armour class. So again, be aware of that. You're not front line. You're not even midline. Get in the middle, really. Just make sure there's people around you. Protect yourself. Utilise spells, particularly at lower levels, that can give you subterfuge, illusionary stuff. Things like mirror image, invisibilities, things like that, that if you need them because the combat gets really heavy and you need to have some protection, those are ideal spells for you early on. So think about that sort of thing. And as you move up in the levels, really pay attention. Know your spells. It sounds obvious, but read each spell level carefully. If you have any questions, ask your referee for his interpretation of something you've read. I suppose that brings us back to something we've already touched on in this review. We're going to talk about some spells, and we're going to talk about the fine line. The good thing about the game is that most of the spells that I already said in my original review of Dungeons & Dragons, there's really very few grey areas. However, in spells, there are a few spells that do appear to be, shall we say, a little broken. So therefore, you know, those sort of things will probably bring up some questions. They certainly have done in my time as a referee, and I'm sure they will in yours. But thankfully, most of these spells are at higher level. And we're going to touch off on those a little bit as well in the later program that we follow up after this regarding certain useful spells, certain things you can do. Tactically, if I'm playing a wizard for now, this review very simply: positioning, make sure you're in the middle of the group, get people around you, utilise your spells wisely, get your timings right, build up a scroll library, protect yourself as best you can, have fun with it. They're one of the most fun classes to play, and ultimately, without a shadow of a doubt, they're the most versatile, potentially the most dangerous. In a one-on-one fight with a fighter, a wizard is going to lose, but in terms of can the fighter get to him, that's another matter entirely. So anyway, this has been Outsiders. My name's Sean Connors. Happy gaming, and until next time, see you again soon. Thank you.